Ready.
All right, we're going to call the Farragut Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting for June 28th to order. I am the vice mayor, and as most of you, probably everybody knows by now, Mayor McGill passed away this past Monday, and there are funeral arrangements being made, and I want to read this information to everybody so that you're fully aware. The funeral for Mayor McGill will be held Friday evening in the Worship Center at First Baptist Concord with a viewing from 5 p.m. to 6:45 p.m. and the funeral to begin at 7 p.m. He will be buried in Pleasant Forest Cemetery on Saturday with a time still yet to be determined. I know his wife Marianne and his children Norman and Kimberly appreciate our support and continued prayers during this difficult time. All right, we're going to begin with a prayer, and Jesse Ellsworth, if you'll step up to the podium, he's going to lead us in prayer, and then we'll stand for a pledge of allegiance to the flag.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful today to gather for this town meeting, and we mourn the loss of Mayor McGill, and pray that thou wilt bless and be with his family as they mourn his loss as well. We pray that thou wilt help Mayor Pinchak as he moves forward, and that he will be able to be inspired to do good things and continue to carry that same vision for Farragut and moving forward, that commerce may do well here in the area, that it will be a safe place for families to grow and raise children, and that we'll be able to be supported and feel the support of the citizens here. We're thankful for this season of remembering our independence, and grateful for this wonderful country we live in, and the many lives that have been given in service to give us the freedoms we enjoy. We're thankful to gather and invite pray that we'll be able to find unity and purpose here as we gather tonight, and we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Do we have any scouts?
We do.
You want to come down and lead us in the pledge of allegiance, please?
Attention. Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, moving on with the agenda. First item is a resolution, and there's been a slight change. Originally, we had one for the resignation of Mayor McGill, but now that he has passed, we have a different resolution, which I will read. Resolution R2018-08. A resolution of the Town of Farragut, Tennessee Board of Mayor and Aldermen to declare vacant the seat of mayor. The Farragut Board of Mayor and Aldermen are saddened by the death of Mayor Ralph McGill, who passed away June 25th after a recent illness. And whereas Mayor McGill has served as mayor since April 2009, and whereas Mayor McGill was one of the founding fathers of Farragut and led a movement to incorporate the town of Farragut that culminated with a successful voter referendum on January 16, 1980. His vision for a community with high development standards has been realized in the thriving municipality that continues to attract residents and businesses. And whereas, during his 2 terms as mayor, the town added numerous amenities, including the McPhee Park splash pad, an outdoor classroom, preserved the historic Campbell Station Inn, developed numerous greenway segments, and improved several important road projects during his tenure. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of the Town of Farragut, Tennessee, as follows. Number 1, vacancy declared. The Board of Mayor and Aldermen hereby declares the Mayor mayoral seat held by Ralph McGill to be vacant as the date of this resolution. Number 2, condolences extended to family and friends of Mayor Ralph McGill. The Board of Mayor and Aldermen acknowledges Mayor McGill's many years of service to the community and extends its deepest sympathies to his wife, Mary Ann, and family and friends. Do I hear a motion to approve? Do I have a second?
Second.
Would any of the board members like to speak? Anything they'd like to say?
I'm going to, when we're done, I'd like to read in Heather Maysbeck's, she wrote a very well-written article in the Knox TN today, and I'd like to read that, but I'll read that during Mayor's report.
Okay, that's fine. Any other?
I think that's, I
Okay.
support that.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Same.
All right, so all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda, oath of office for mayor. That's me. Senator Briggs and my son Jeff Pinchot, please come down.
You can stand right here, and what we'll do is put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name,
Ronald Pinchot,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I possess all the qualifications
that I possess all of the qualifications
of the mayor
of the mayor
as prescribed
as prescribed
by the charter of the town of Farragut,
by the charter of the town of Farragut,
and that I will support
and that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
and will obey the laws
and will obey the laws
of the United States,
of the United States,
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
and will obey
and will obey
the laws
the laws
of the state of Tennessee,
of the state of Tennessee,
and that I will,
and that I will,
in all respects,
and with all respects,
observe the provisions
observe the provisions
of the charter
of the charter
and ordinances
and ordinances
of the town of Farragut,
of the town of Farragut,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the mayor.
the duties of the mayor.
Congratulations, Mr. Mayor. Okay. Let's put the mayor here in the middle. Set this here.
I have yours.
What's next?
We continue with the meeting.
Oh, thank you. All right, let's move on. Approval of the agenda.
Are there any changes? David, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, there are none.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes. Mayor's report. I have nothing well, let me just say just a couple words. I've got a lot of mixed emotions right now. First of all, it's sad to have lost our mayor. That's been hard the last few days to handle. The other thing, I'm honored and humbled to be able to take on this position of mayor, even though it's going to be for a short period of time. But I really am honored by this opportunity to serve this town in this manner. And I'm also very excited. There's an awful lot that I want to still see done in this town, and I'm hoping to be able to be on this board for another 4 years. And there's just a lot more that we want to accomplish. So I'm just very thankful for this opportunity. And I want to thank all those out there that have been supporting me. I really appreciate it. Okay.
All right.
I'm going to let Louise say.
This article is written by Heather Maysbeck, and if any of you know, she wrote the Full Speed Ahead. It was the story of the founding of the town of Farragut. It's an incredible read. If you're ever interested, they sell them at the museum. She wrote it's a very compelling story. It's a very quick read, but it's a very compelling story. So it was very appropriate that she wrote this, and she wrote this for Knox TN Today. When most of us consider the legacy we might leave, we likely do not consider that our impact would reach the tens of thousands, but Ralph McGill's does. Without him, there would be no town of Farragut. That may seem easy to read over, so try it this way. Ralph's legacy is the community you live in and love. It is not hyperbole to say that your home, your street, your park, your life would be different were it not for Ralph McGill, because without Ralph, Farragut would be different and likely would not be at all. In 1979, Ralph McGill sat in the living room of his house in Village Green subdivision and watched his backyard flood. The price of errant development and inconsistent rules. The backyard flooding of Ralph and Marianne McGill's first home in Farragut was a catalyst that led to the grassroots founding of the town. Others were already discussing the idea of incorporation to control the uncontrolled, to ensure beauty where there was a flooded mass of mud. But all the original founders acknowledged Ralph organized and managed the incorporation effort. We all had an idea to incorporate, but no one was willing to step up and lead. That was Ralph, said Eric Johnson, another founding father of Farragut. He had the courage and conviction to lead this effort. That was his character. He was always dedicated to making sure the government worked for the people. With car odometers and pencils and paper, Ralph and other founders walked and drove the borders of what would be the town of Farragut. He knocked on doors to collect petition signatures and to encourage voters to come out to the polls. He gave interviews to the press and participated in debates at Farragut High School. His even keel protected the idea of the town during those contentious times when a stray comment might have ruined the effort. His determination and drive kept the fight alive when convenience or apathy might have led down the path of least resistance. Ralph was the savior of the incorporation efforts, said Betty Dick, current Farragut Municipal Planning Commissioner and member of the founding group. He led us in the direction we needed to go, and with him we put this whole thing together in 20 days. We've lost a really great man, and I hope the people of Farragut know that. He was honest and forward and had great integrity. He truly believed in the town of Farragut. As mayor, he's always sought others' opinions and worked to represent everyone in the community. He was an outstanding mayor, Johnson said. When the incorporation fight was over, McGill returned to his life, to his family, to his job at ORNL as mechanical engineer. He let others lead the town and watched the community he loved gain shape, grow, and thrive. When Ralph became Farragut's third mayor, it was a return to his legacy. Ralph might have been an engineer by trade, but he was an activist at heart, a true community politician, a believer in governance for people. He kept photographs of Village Green flooding, of people wading through their driveways in water up to their knees. When he described his work to fix those issues and many others, he equated it to the American Revolution, to a David and Goliath battle. For Ralph, there was a reason the town was named Farragut. Like Admiral David Glasgow Farragut, he too had stood in the fray and shouted, "Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead." He and the other founders stood against the giant and won.
Thank you, Louise. Anybody else have anything they want to say at this point? Okay. Moving on. Citizens Forum. Did anybody?
We do. We have one speaker signed up. It's John Schoonmaker.
Okay.
I'm John Schoonmaker. I'm the Knox County Commissioner that represents Southwest Knox County.
And we should have
including-
announced you before the meeting started. Sorry, John.
Okay, well, I'm saying it now.
There you
then.
go.
And I do represent the town of Farragut, and I just want to take this opportunity to just give you a quick 2 or 3 minute update on our road project on North Campbell Station Road. The good thing is it's on schedule, and it's going to cost, as you probably recall, about $266,000. One of the reasons that we actually had to close the road was because of the equipment that was needed to bring in to put in a 70-foot long retaining wall. So we've actually got this firm out of Kentucky that brought a $1.3 million drilling rig in, which spans the entire width of the road, and they're boring 10 holes 10 feet deep into solid bedrock, to put a 30-foot steel I-beam, the same kind of a steel I-beam you'd use in a bridge assembly. So when they've already done, they did 5 holes today, they'll do 5 holes tomorrow. And what's neat about it is once those poles are in place, they can then just fill it with concrete and then start the assembly of the retaining wall. But as you know, that road surface was just with that slope there was just falling away. In fact, they had to do some emergency repairs this morning because of all the rain that occurred last night. So the other good thing is we're on schedule. We should be finished by the end of July. There's also a caveat in there if the contractor goes beyond the date, there's a $1,000 a day fine. So, but everything looks good. It's a local. It's Blaylock and Sons is the contractor, so everything looks good. But we're sorry we had to shut the road down, but there was just absolutely no other way to do it. So,
For those of you that aren't aware, the construction is taking place between Ridgeland and Yarnell, so they've closed down the road between Ridgeland and Yarnell.
correct.
For
But that way
Thank
it
you,
was done during the
John.
summer where it doesn't impact school opening in the
Yeah.
fall.
Thanks, John.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
John. Thank you for being here.
Was that was the only one?
That was the only one.
All right, next, approval of the minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right, we're on to ordinances. Public hearing and second reading for ordinance 18-03, ordinance to amend Appendix A zoning, Chapter 3, specific district regulations of the Farragut Municipal Code by adding the neighborhood/convenience commercial zoning district, NCC, Town of Farragut applicant.
This is a new zone that would be, as we talked about in the first reading, we have the general commercial zoning district. And there was kind of a need as a result of our land use plan steering committee for looking at maybe breaking that down and providing for a more neighborhood-oriented district that's a little scaled down and less intensive than the C1. So that's what Ordinance 1803 provides for. This is kind of a district that is seen as something that might be a good candidate for transitioning to nearby residential developments because it would be more smaller scale buildings, more attention to different things on site development that could create a nuisance or an issue with neighborhoods, like looking more intensely at lighting, the placement of dumpsters, noise, all those kinds of things. So that's what's provided for in this ordinance. This was unanimously recommended for approval by the Planning Commission in May and was approved on first reading 2 weeks ago. We did make one amendment, as we talked about under first reading. We omitted the last sentence of the general description section, and that was included in your revised ordinance. And with that modification, the staff recommends approval of Ordinance 1803 on second reading.
I'm going to move to approve ordinance 18-03 on second reading.
Second.
Discussion? Comments?
None.
Have any?
Do we have anybody that's affected by this that has any thoughts on it? I have no comments.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item. Ordinance 18-05, ordinance to amend the height regulations for accessory buildings in the R-1 Rural Single Family Residential Zoning District, Town of Farragut applicant.
This we talked about 2 weeks ago as well. This is an ordinance that addresses an issue we've had on occasion with residential accessory structures that are constructed on slopes. So what is provided for in Ordinance 1805 is to allow an accessory structure to go slightly higher on larger lots in the R1 zoning district because the structures are not as closely spaced as some of our other districts. And then there would be some limitation to that. You can go up to 20 feet in height, and you have an additional setback of 2 feet for each foot you go above 15 feet, which is our current maximum height for accessory structures. So this was reviewed by the Planning Commission in May and unanimously recommended for approval, and it was approved on first reading, and the staff recommends approval of ordinance 1805 on second reading.
No changes?
Changes.
Motion?
Approve ordinance 18-05 on second reading.
Second.
Discussion? Comments?
None.
None.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next item, ordinance 18-07, ordinance to remove the General Commercial Storage District CS-1 from Chapter 3 of the Farragut zoning ordinance, Town of Farragut applicant.
Okay, this one, this is a zoning district that we've had in place for a few years. It's never been used. We've never had anybody request a rezoning to this. It was created for a development many years ago that obviously didn't come to fruition on Concord Road. It affects a key gateway portion of the town. Staff recommended to remove this to the Planning Commission as a district, and the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of that as reflected in Ordinance 1807. And this was also approved on first reading 2 weeks ago, and the staff recommends approval on second reading. There have been no changes to the ordinance.
Motion?
Move to approve ordinance 18-07 on second reading.
Second.
Any discussion?
None.
None.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Ordinance 18-08, ordinance to remove mini warehouse facilities from the list of permitted uses in the Regional Commercial C-2 zoning district and retain mini warehouse facilities as a permitted use in the Regional Commercial Retail/Warehousing C-2-R/W zoning district, Town of Farragut applicant.
This ordinance is similar to a couple other ones. Was a result largely of some discussions we've had with our Comprehensive Land Use Plan Steering Committee and looking at particularly our gateway portions of the town and making sure that we have in our zoning, we have provisions in there that will help us realize the vision of how we want to see those areas develop. A lot of the C2 portion of the town is in gateway areas because it's interstate oriented, so oftentimes that's going to be the first areas that visitors would see when they come to the town. So one of the things that we talked about with the Planning Commission was removing many warehouses from that zoning district, but retaining it in the retail warehousing district where it would be more appropriate. And this was reviewed by the Planning Commission in May and unanimously recommended for approval. They did subject their approval to the exclusion of the property at 11775 Snyder Road. That's the former U.S. Golf site, because we had an applicant that came to the Planning Commission in March with a concept site plan to construct a mini warehouse project on that property. So we didn't want to them to make a decision and purchase the land and then change the rules on them after the fact, because that was before we developed this ordinance. So we specifically addressed that exclusion now in Section 2, which I did read to the board 2 weeks ago. That has not changed. It is reflected in your revised ordinance 1808, and the staff recommends approval of ordinance 1808 with that Section 2 on second reading.
Move to approve the amended ordinance 18-08 on second reading.
Second.
Questions or comments?
None.
None.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Ordinance 18-11, ordinance to rezone parcel 12, tax map 162, located at 801 McPhee Road, 20.267 acres from R2 to R1/OSR, Homestead Land Holdings LLC applicant.
This property is just north of McPhee Park. It's on the west side of McPhee Road and just south of McPhee Manor. And the request is to rezone from R2 to OSR. The property has a lot of, I guess, natural challenges, which would lend itself to being a better candidate for OSR than R2. It's also, from the staff's perspective, more consistent with their future land use map. So the staff recommended approval of this rezoning to the Planning Commission. They unanimously recommended approval, and it was approved on first reading, and the staff recommends approval of ordinance 18-11 on second reading. There have been no changes to the ordinance.
Move to approve ordinance 18-11 on second reading.
Second.
Questions? Discussion?
None.
Oh, this.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next is an ordinance 18-06. This ordinance is to establish the fiscal year 2019 budget for the general fund, State Street Aid Fund, Capital Investment Fund, Equipment Replacement Fund, and Insurance Fund budgets of the town of Farragut, Tennessee, for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019.
Thank you, Mayor. From the first reading to second reading, we had a couple of minor changes and then some more changes in the CIP. But in the general fund, some of the changes and expenditures that we had is we allocated money for our tourism coordinator in our line item budget, but failed to put that in our summary document. So we needed to add $34,944 in expenditures for our tourism coordinator. And also, we discussed last meeting about cost to minimum increase for some employee personnel costs, and so after we recalculated those, it increased that by about $156. So we need to add those items and those costs to the general fund. For the CIP, we have a few different projects that we talked about at first reading that we've added this time to the CIP. First is a pedestrian signal at Grigsby Chapel. There's a median walkway right there near the commercial area that goes into the residential area on Grigsby Chapel. So we've added $35,000 to cover the pedestrian signal there. We've also added $305,000 in FY19 for Snyder Road and Campbell Station Road improvements. That would add an additional lane going from Snyder southbound to the I-40 interchange right there to alleviate some of the backup and congestion that's going on in that area. Also, we have reallocated from land acquisition reserves $1.5 million to go into the land acquisition expenditure account in case there are any opportunities for the town and the board to purchase any properties in this next fiscal year. Finally, we talked recently about the Smith Road Greenway at the workshop just prior to this meeting, that the fact that project, instead of being a greenway, now will probably be a road widening with a sidewalk. That will not change the FY19 budget. It will change the FY 2020 budget by increasing expenditures from $350,000 to $650,000 because of that change. The final change I know the board talked about, and certainly you can have more discussion about here, is amending the McPhee Park expansion for FY19. We originally had $6.1 million in for that expansion, and I believe there was a discussion about changing that to $4 million. So if anybody would like to make any amendments other than that or changes to that, please do. But with that, that's the entire budget, and I'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
I'm going to move to approve ordinance 18-06 on, this is not first reading, this is second reading. This is the second reading, to adopt the annual budget for Town of Farragut, Tennessee for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019.
As amended.
As amended.
I'll second.
Mayor, we have two speakers as well for this item.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to hear from them first?
Yes, please.
Okay. First one is Drew Burnett.
State your name and home address, please.
Yeah, Drew Burnett, 124 Chaho Road. been a Farragut resident for about 37 years, and looking around looking for the rest of the pickleballers, but I guess with the rain held off, they're out pickleballing somewhere. But I just wanted to take a minute and voice my support for the McPhee expansion. You know, having a good-sized family, 5 kids, having grandparents in their mid-70s, the park is something that meets all needs of members in our community. Even as we look on the wall at critical success factors for Farragut, these types of spaces are critical for us to continue to grow, to maintain tourism activities, to keep those monies, keep those people in our community, as well as attract new and younger families. Yeah, no big speech, but just wanted you to know that, you know, I probably represent 6 to 8 other families who would love to be here who are not here. But the other thing I'd throw back, maybe 2 things that if they could be addressed later in discussion are, you know, 2 things that came up last week from kind of questions about the McPhee expansion. One was the town center. If we could get some more information, you know, I understand that meetings are happening, but to me that's nowhere near a reason enough to hold off on doing something that we've planned, saved for, and have the budget for. And then the second thing is the $3 or $4 million number that was thrown out last week. I believe Mr. Markley said if we had that, you would be on board with that. My curiosity is, where did the number come from? What would that include? What would that provide? What type of grading? What type of opportunities for the park would $3 or $4 million do? So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to address his comments. Drew, just so you know, we just had a workshop on the budget, and we heard y'all loud and clear from our last meeting, and we have revised the scope of design work to include all the tennis courts and the pickleball courts. And we adjusted the budget because we feel very confident we can get it done. But that park is not going to happen without having pickleball courts and tennis courts. So.
Good.
Our second speaker is Pamela Milliken.
Good evening. This will be short. I actually came to oppose the $6 million for the proposed budget for the McPhee Park, just because we're a sales tax driven city, and I thought we needed to reconsider that. But $4 million is, I think, much more in line with what our budget can hold. So I thank you for doing that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Pam.
That's all.
That's it. Discussion from board members? Questions?
I think we covered it.
All right.
Yeah, I think just for the benefit of the audience who wasn't in the discussions we had before the meeting, we all feel very strongly we need to go ahead with the park. Most of us were very nervous with the sums that were being set apart for it without actually having even seen plans. We don't really have a handle on quantities, and with all the projects that we have that have come up since this park number was put in the budget, we just felt it'd be irresponsible to put in that larger sum. We won't be able to spend that money this year anyway. It's going to be later on. It'll be October, I understand, before we even have working drawings where we can get some hard, fast numbers, and then we'll proceed. And we all committed that whatever we do with the park, this next phase will include the pickleball and tennis ball courts that we hear that you all want.
I might just add that back in August of last year, we were told that this was kind of a 5-step process. And first, they went out and they did the grubbing. They cleaned out all the underbrush so that we could get people out there to do the topography, layout of the land. And now we're doing some other studies. And with each one of these steps, we're going to better feel for what the cost is going to be. So we hope that by October or early next year, we'll have a real good estimate on what the costs are going to be, and I think we've funded it properly at this point in time. So we're all excited to move forward with the park, but it is a slow process, and we'll try to move it along as quick as we can. All right, any other questions?
I'm going to add one little thing.
Sure.
I have sent you guys through a knothole. I know I've driven staff crazy. You know how concerned I've been. I look at the bottom line a lot, and I know that we've got a lot of different things up in the air. So I really appreciate your patience, and I really appreciate your consideration, and I feel much more comfortable with this number and with this vote. So I really appreciate it.
Main thing here is that we're funding the design portion of it, and that's important because when we go to people and we talk about sponsorship on a court, or whether it be a tennis court or pickleball court or anything else for that matter, the first thing they'll ask you is, do you have funding? And any project that you do, that's the first thing that gets asked. And if you say no, then they're not really interested in talking with you about anything. So with this right here, we do have the first part of the funding, and we can move on.
I have nothing else.
All right. All right, time to vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Now we're to first readings. Ordinance 18-09, ordinance to rezone partial 58, tax map 151, located at 12639 Kingston Pike. It's 28.76 acres, from R-2 to R-1 and FPD to NCC and OS-P and FPD, and the site incorporated is the applicant.
Sounded a little complicated, didn't it? This item actually went to the Planning Commission back initially in February, then in April, before they made a recommendation in May to you all. This is known locally as the Swan Farm. It's basically on the north side of Kingston Pike, just west of Everett Road. Most of the properties you can see on the screen is in yellow, and that's R2. And
We don't have it up on our
screen. Andrew Black. Screen's not turned on.
How do you turn it on? There it goes. Turn not on. There it goes.
Okay. Initially, the applicant requested to rezone approximately the southern 2/3 of the property to general commercial, and then the northern third to R4, which is attached single family. But at the same time, the staff was developing this neighborhood convenience commercial district. And after kind of sending that, frankly, to the applicant and letting him go through it and see how it would work with what they envisioned doing on the property, both they and the staff and felt that that district was a better fit for this property, since you have a lot of large subdivisions nearby, and it would be a good transitional district. So they amended their request to change what was previously C1 and R4, the request, to the neighborhood convenience commercial, the NCC. The floodway portion of the property to the east, which is really undevelopable, is being requested to rezone to open space park, and that's consistent with our practice on rezonings. It involved floodplains, and it really wouldn't affect the developability of the property. When this rezoning was presented to the Planning Commission, the condition of Union Road was a major topic of discussion, since this property does have significant frontage on Union Road. It also does obviously front on Kingston Pike. But the staff recommended that if the property were rezoned and thus allowed more density of development on the property, that there be a condition in place that all portions of any development that might occur on the property would have to access a street that meets the minimum design standards in our subdivision regulations. And that could be achieved by either the town improvements to Union Road, which we know is several years out, or the extension of Way Station Trail through the property to Union Road, so that anything that develops on the Swan property would have the ability to access those compliant streets, and they wouldn't access Union Road. The Planning Commission, when they reviewed this for a formal recommendation in May, recommended approval of Ordinance 1810, subject to the condition that the staff recommended dealing with the road improvements. And subsequent to that, the staff's been working with the town attorney to provide in language in Ordinance 1810 that would more specifically address the specifics of the Planning Commission's recommendation, how that would work and what would be the trigger points in terms of when improvements would have to be in place. So obviously, if you have specific questions about that language, either myself or Tom Hill could try to answer those for you. But that's basically what is contained in Ordinance 1810, and the staff, or 1809, I guess it is. The staff recommends approval of Ordinance 18-09 on first reading.
I'm going to move to approve Ordinance 18-09 on first reading.
Second.
Okay, discussion, questions?
I have none.
I have none.
None.
I have none.
I'd like to make one suggested change to the ordinance, if I could, please. That if you look on subsection capital B, little I, little v, where the provision requires that a completion letter of credit be provided. In the initial draft, I had it that had to be provided prior to the second reading of the rezoning ordinance. I'd like to strike that language and insert after the word deliver prior to the words prior to the commencement of work.
Will deliver prior
To the commencement of work.
And what do we mean by commencement of work? Moving dirt?
Yes.
Tom, did you review that with them as well? Are they okay with that?
That's
their language?
Something they requested.
Okay. And
And-
you're comfortable with that?
Yes, everybody. Mark and I talked about it, and I think we're good with it.
So I have move to amend ordinance 18-09 to amend section 1B IV to read, can I just read the whole thing?
Sure.
In order to secure the owner's obligations to perform work within the right-of-way of the town at the point of the tie-in of Kingston Pike with Way Station Trail Extension, the owner will deliver prior to the commencement of work a completion letter of credit for the benefit of the town in an amount established by the town engineer. And. Is that correct? Okay. Need a second.
Second.
Okay, any further questions or comments?
I have none.
All right.
None.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So that's for the amendment. Now we have to hear for the whole thing, right? So we have just approved the amendment. Now we've got to approve the whole ordinance.
Which has already been a motion and it's
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
seconded.
Ready to vote.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion 1809 is passed. Next is first reading for ordinance 18-10. Ordinance to rezone parcels 52, 54, 54.01, 55, and 57, tax map 151, located at 12723, 12733, 12737, 12751, Union Road. It's 115 acres from A to R-1 and R-1/OSR. Site Incorporated is the applicant.
This rezoning was reviewed by the Planning Commission pretty much concurrent with the previous rezoning in February, April, and then they made a recommendation in May. This is the known here in the area as the Ivy Farm. It's on the north side of Union Road. It's in between Saddle Ridge and Fox Run, and it has been a working farm for over 100 years, and the property has some natural characteristics. It has a couple of drainages that bisect through the property that would make it, from the staff's perspective, a good candidate for the requested open space residential overlay. And let's see if I've got any other. Okay. So in terms of the zoning itself, the staff felt that that was a good fit for the property, and it would provide actually better protection for the surrounding subdivisions than if it were rezoned to R2 or R1. The big issue, of course, with rezoning the property, we had discussions with the Planning Commission, was the substandard condition of Union Road. And similar to the Swan property, the staff recommended that we could not support any rezoning that, in comparison to what the property is currently zoned, which is primarily agricultural, which requires a 5-acre minimum lot size, any rezoning that would add more traffic to this very substandard road. So the staff recommended that the rezoning should be conditioned on either improvements to Union Road being completed or the extension of Way Station Trail from Kingston Pike to Union Road, and a roundabout within Union Road that would access directly the Ivy Farm, so that any development that would occur on the Ivy Farm would have direct access to a collector street at a minimum that would meet the town's minimum standards provided for in the subdivision regulations. When the Planning Commission reviewed this for a recommendation at their meeting in May, they unanimously recommended approval of the rezoning, subject to the condition noted by the staff. And similar to the previous item, staff has worked with the town attorney on language that's in Ordinance 18-10 to address the specifics of the Planning Commission's recommendation. And the staff recommends approval of Ordinance 18-10 on first reading.
Motion?
This one, let me, before you do that, so you don't have to amend it, I'd like to make the same amendment to the same provision that we made the previous ordinance. This one's a little more complicated because it includes the roundabout, but it's essentially the same as the previous ordinance.
So the language will be the on B, Roman numeral 4, Way Station Trail. The owner will, prior to commencement of work,
Yes.
Deliver prior to.
And then strike out
that's deliver.
prior to the second reading, just say
Deliver.
will deliver prior to the commencement of work a completion letter of credit.
Okay, it says deliver right after this sentence, so it would read, the owner will, prior to commencement of work, deliver a completion letter of credit for the benefit of the town in amount established by the town engineer.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, all right. Motion to approve ordinance 18-10 on first reading with the modification of paragraph B, subparagraph Roman numeral 4, in order to secure the owner's obligations to perform work within the right-of-way of the town within Union Road in order to construct the roundabout and, if required, at the point of the tie-in of Kingston Pike with Way Station Trail extension, the owner will, prior to commencement of the work, deliver a completion letter of credit for the benefit of the town in an amount established by the town engineer, comma, and, or semicolon, and.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion or questions?
I'm just, I've recused myself from this vote at the MPC level, and I will recuse myself here. My property backs up to it, and I just felt out of abundance of caution, I would recuse myself from the
So noted.
discussions.
In the audience?
I haven't had anybody sign up for it.
Okay.
3/5 of the board concurring?
Yeah.
Okay. Ready to vote?
Ready to vote? Yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And I recuse myself.
Right.
All right, we're now on to business items. Approval of a request for a variance from this distance between driveways requirement in the driveways and other accessways ordinance in association with a requested right-in, right-out access onto Concord Road for the property referenced as 816 Concord Road, partial 001, tax map 153B, Group B, 0.5 acres, zoned RA within Knox County, and John and Sarah Malin are the applicant.
As you may remember from an item that came before you a few months ago, the Concord Road right-of-way is actually all in the town, even though a lot of parcels on the east side are in the county. So we do have control over access points onto that street. And TDOT will be starting their improvement project relatively soon. And as part of that, they're looking at access points. And the applicant at this time is requesting a right-in, right-out. It's hard to see on the screen there, but it's for a residential driveway that would access basically a rectangular shaped piece of property that's about half an acre. And, whoop, it's all right. Go back. Yeah. Let's see. It's got a little bit of a delay in it. Let me just go to the 74. Hold on a second. Yep. Let me just do it the old-fashioned way. Yeah, hold on. Not sure what's going on here.
It's just happy it wasn't
It's
her
froze
fault.
up on the 74 is this
The
slide.
telestrator over
It
here
wouldn't
messed
do
it up. I apologize.
Operator error.
Not
Yeah.
doing that crazy thing. You'll have to hit that. It's a little bit. Maybe something here. And also, let me hit this first. Okay.
You gotta push it over here. It's off.
You broke it.
Now try it.
Yes.
Now try it.
74. There we go. Nope. Okay. I'll do
I'm not
it.
touching
Yeah,
it.
I got it. Okay.
Can you help me?
No, it's.
You good?
Point to where that-
I'll try to describe it.
Can you
It's fine.
point to where that driveway is? Will you point to it on your, I see it here, but I don't know if the audience can see it.
Can you put the mouse on it?
You're going to make me touch that? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Kill it again.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that what he tried to do earlier?
There we go.
Is it right?
That's it. Yes,
All
that's
right,
it.
there you go. That's it. Okay.
Okay, yep, that's good. Yeah, so this one is just a residential driveway, and the applicant actually does not own any property around this, or we would have asked them to combine that, but this would be their only access into the property. So they're requesting the access, which would require a variance from our access and other driveways ordinance, or driveways and other access ways ordinance. This is an arterial street. It requires 400 feet between curb cuts, and the access point that they are proposing would be about 119 feet from the nearest access to the north, 194 feet to the nearest access point to the south. So they would need a variance from that 400-foot requirement. Since the property would have no other access, and the fact that TDOT has actually already approved a residential driveway for this property, the staff would recommend approval of the right-in, right-out residential driveway access that's requested at this time. This would not involve any change to the median. There's a raised median through there, and that will stay. If that needs to be part of your recommendation, that's fine. But it is just a right-in, right-out, basically driveway. and the staff does recommend approval.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the variance.
Request for a variance.
The requested residential driveway access onto Concord Road and the associated variances with stipulation noted by staff.
Second.
Okay, discussion and questions?
Yep. None.
We have a speaker, we have somebody at the podium. Would you state your name and home address, please?
John Malin, applicant, 12807 Night Heron Drive. I just came up here in case there were any additional questions.
I'm just curious, where is this in relation to the one we approved a month or two ago for little shopping center?
It's a couple of hundred
94 feet, right?
feet further north.
Okay, just more up toward town here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Connected?
No,
What's in between?
there's a old piece of the farm that ended up being bought by two doctors, and it's pretty much a large piece of property that's undeveloped, that's across the street from Clarity Point. And then our other section is to the south of that.
Is that also where the power lines go across?
I don't,
The south? Okay.
yeah, this
Okay.
northern section is just south of the Jeter property and across the road from former Mr. Jordan's property.
Got it.
I don't really see the boundaries of the property on here.
It is.
Back property
that's
goes
it.
right
That's
there
it.
to
Yeah, it shows it
back
good.
there, but that's what we're looking for.
It's about 90 feet across the front and
It's a
about
very-
240 feet in length along the sides.
Rectangular lot that goes about-
Yeah, if you see the lot that says Sarah F. Ralston,
Okay, that is the lot, just that.
That's the lot.
that strip. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, I have no more questions.
What's that other cut there, Mark? It says cut. What is that below that?
It's the driveway for Mr. Jordan, but there's a house there, existing house.
Okay.
Probably about 10 years ago, I guess, or so. That's his driveway.
Any comments or questions?
None.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Let's see, where are we?
Software.
Approval of software upgrade proposal from Tyler Technologies.
Yes, sir. Joe LaCroix, our IT manager, is going to come speak to you about this item and the next item. And he and his crew have done an incredible job, so I will hand it to him.
Good evening, all. All right, for the record, I'm Joe LaCroix, IT manager. That's if you like me today. If you don't like IT today, I'm the IT mangler. So I've got two items here on the list, B and C. And if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of squish those together because it's all part of the same initiative. Excuse me, May 2016, the board adopted the Information Technology Strategic Plan. And in that plan, the town identified enterprise resource planning software as a high priority. Enterprise resource planning software, if you think about it, it's a very large umbrella that you take all the business that's happening in the town and put it under this umbrella software. Each piece from different departments talk and the reports flow much smoother. Currently, we're completely disparate in all of our software systems. So the eGov team, which comprises of members of each department, got together. We started on this road to put something together. The members of the eGov team went back to their departments and identified critical items that needed to be in this software for ERP. We came back together, we put these critical items together in a ERP checklist and then created a RFP and sent it out. During that process, we had 7 vendors that were interested in either making a proposal, whatever. 5 vendors actually came in, made a proposal. One of them completely was shut out for a couple different reasons. So what the eGov team did is we looked at the proposals that came in, and we decided that there were 2 that stood head and shoulders above the rest of the proposals. And so we watched their demonstrations. The idea, the intent of ERP was to have one software company provide all of the modules for ERP. And we found that this just didn't suit our needs well enough. We found that one software vendor really excelled in a certain portion, and the other vendor excelled in another portion of that. And that's kind of the overview of these 2 software purchases, these 2 items that we're looking at purchasing. So the decision, and it was unanimous within the eGov team, was to go with Encode. Encode is our current software vendor for our financials. And we decided that their product was pretty spectacular. And the new iteration, it made the old iteration look pretty bad. We went with a different vendor, South Central Planning Development Corporation, a government entity out of Louisiana, for all of the permitting, community development type software, zoning, planning, work order processing, client portal, everything outside of the financials piece and human resource management. Let's see what's up. What else is? That's basically the proposal in a nutshell, beyond getting into the actual discussion of software and you know, the differences in what we're going to. And that, do you want me to get that far into the weeds with us? Yeah.
I'm just going to turn
Right.
off my ears.
Usually I'm all excited about talking about it, but when I do, people's eyes roll in their head. So that's it. Item B is for Encode. A real quick down and dirty on Encode. We're running Encode 5. We purchased it initially in
2007.
2007. And just to give you an idea, in 2006, the iPhone came on the market.
Oh, geez.
Just a little thing. So if you look at the way it works and operates, think of 2 stacks of paper. You have to go down 1 stack of paper to find an account. And then, you're like, I need to go and look at this other account. You have to go back up the stack and over to the next one and down and pull that out. That's how that software works. The new software has this really functional user interface, and you're looking at an account and you say, I want to look at this other account that's already notifying you that they're connected. You click on the button and it opens it. It's so much better, far superior than what we're currently using.
So we're talking about a time saver. Big time
Absolutely.
saver. Yeah.
Absolutely.
What about the PALs continue with the rec desk? Why are they doing that? Why aren't they upgrading?
We had a member of PALS within the eGov team, and during the demonstration, that member was excited about looking at the software. Once that happened, the comparison between what they're currently using and the new software that was being proposed, the software that they're currently using fit their needs better. So actually, there was a little period of time where PALS actually wanted to delay a decision on what software we went with so they could review the proposals several times, and we did. We got the vendor online, did several demonstrations after the initial decision to go with these 2 vendors, and it just came back from that member that RecDesk is what they currently use, was a better product for them currently than any of the new software that was proposed.
I thought at one time I'd heard there were some problems with the being slow to operate and so forth. So has that been corrected? And I just, as long as they're happy, I'm happy, but I just want to make sure I understand what has transpired there.
Well, and also while you're addressing that, I know I spoke to Allison, making sure that whatever rec desk can talk to our financials.
It's my understanding the rec desk will be able to talk to financials, which is the big problem right now that Allison has. For our purposes, it's not perfect, rec desk isn't, but it's better than either of the two vendors, way better than what they had to offer. And we've been impressed that rec desk continually rolls out new and better stuff. So we think, again, it's not perfect, and it may need to be changed in future, depending on what other things we're doing in the future. But right now, it's better than what we could have gotten with those two vendors.
Is rec desk working at all to integrate themselves into other, obviously, this rec desk is used by government entities.
Mm-hmm.
Are they working to integrate themselves into these different
I can answer
computer systems?
Well, I will
I don't know
say
what I
that.
just said, but it sounded good, right?
Yeah. Parks and Recreation, we knew from the get-go, and we've, talked with Joe quite a bit about this. We're an anomaly. Every Park and Rec department is usually separate from a lot of the systems that cities have because we do so many various things that they can't handle all the details. So, but he can.
Okay.
Yeah, so Rec Desk handles, let's just take one simple one, rental fees for, our ball fields. The way that Rec Desk handles it is a superior method than either of the other two vendors. It just handles it better. Going to the integration, it will, Rec Desk has promised us that they will integrate with Encode.
Okay.
The new Encode software is one of the requirements that they will integrate with Rec Desk. Now, going back, when you have multiple vendors, it's always this. Well, they didn't do this, and then going with one, but it's the overall solution is a better solution going to multiple vendors.
Okay. You said that we were using Encode 5 before. I assume there was a 6, 7, 8, and 9, and we just never upgraded, or so are we going to just keep an eye if Encode 10, 11 comes out? We'll be looking at that to see if it's suitable enough to upgrade to? Or?
Absolutely. And we'll try to stay away from the bleeding edge, get a tried and true upgrade. Part of their proposal did consider or does consider upgrades to new versions. So, yeah.
Okay. And I see that there's an upgrade cost, but then there's an annual fee.
Correct.
Is that a typical running annual fee for any system we're going to?
I believe that's what we're currently paying.
It's the same costs that we're currently paying.
Okay.
So really, we're just paying for the upgrade from 5 to 10, and then our maintenance cost is the same.
Okay.
And there's other fees that are going, there's some training involved in the cost and that kind of stuff.
It's very exciting.
It's very exciting. Yeah.
For most of us.
There's a human resource piece to it as well that we're not currently leveraging. Once we get the new software, an employee will be able to go in and look at their own account and say, okay, I've got this number of hours I've got, which currently we can't do. It goes across the board in upgrades, and it's a.
I assume for community development, it eases them when they're out in the field working. That addresses those issues.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Going, and once again, I don't want to go too deep, but the inspectors, anyone who goes out in the field will be able to pull up not only, let's say they go into one of these master divisions where, there's 20 houses being built at the same time. If the superintendent comes over and says, hey, where are we at on this house over there? The inspector, although he's working on this house, can give a real-time update on where all these other ones. And the builders themselves have access to the, it's called a workflow, to the workflow, and they know exactly where they're at as well.
Okay. That's helpful.
All right, again, the motion is for in-code software upgrade, so let's focus on that one.
Yeah, move for approval of proposal for the Encode software upgrade in the amount of $35,500.
We already had a motion.
Did we move for both of them already? Did I miss the? We didn't do any motions. We've not done any motions.
And we will
Second.
need to do them separately
Oh,
because they're two
okay,
different.
I'm sorry, okay.
Second.
All right, any further discussion?
I
Sorry.
thought I was losing my mind.
Done.
All right.
All right.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now we're on to approval of intergovernmental agreement for licensing South Central Planning and Development Commission, which is SCPDC software. There we go.
And we've discussed this already.
Yes, this piece, and once again, I kind of did a mashup of the two. This piece of the ERP, the Enterprise Resource Planning, is going to cover pretty much everything in community development, work order processing, which covers both, engineering and public works, forward-facing portal for our clients, But the big majority and the biggest bang for our buck coming from this software is going to be upgrading for community development.
That's exciting. All right, I'm going to move for approval of memorandum of understanding with South Central Planning and Development Commission, My Government Online.
Second.
Any further discussion?
None.
I have none.
I would like to note that we have come under budget on this project. And I want to
Right.
thank Joe and his team for that.
Yeah, I
Thank
see.
Joe for your efforts.
Thank you very much.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item, approval of memorandum of understanding between the town of Farragut and the Farragut Business Alliance.
Mayor and Board, this is, the town has had an ongoing MOU with the FBA since around 2010. And the FBA is a organization, a nonprofit organization here in town to promote the businesses in the town of Farragut. The FBA holds several community events throughout the year. They've got one coming up here next week, the Red, White, and Blues Jam at the West End Center, as well as Farragut Food and Wine Festival, Light the Park, and they've added Dog Days at Village Green recently. This agreement is for a one-year MOU with the FBA that would start July 1st and end June 30th of next year. They're requesting $70,000 from the town, which is the same level of funding as their current agreement. And they have provided in their program, in the contract here, a program of work for FY 2019. This does approval of this MOU would help facilitate the town's goal of promoting a convenient retail and services destination, and we recommend approval. And Steve Krimpaski, the Executive Director of the FBA, is here in case you have any questions.
Do I have a motion?
You guys go ahead. I recuse myself from this one just because it's not necessary, but
Need a motion.
Motion to approve memorandum of understanding between the town of Farragut and the Farragut Business Alliance as attached.
Second.
All right.
I recuse myself, but it's mostly, I'm a small business owner in town, and it gets a little bit, and I serve on the board, and it gets a little hairy, but having said that, I don't mind speaking to this. We have, the Farragut Business Alliance started out as one thing and addressed a lot of issues that we were having, small businesses were having, well, business in general. They got signage and they kind of advocated for a lot of the things. When all of that kind of settled out, they were left, okay, what do we do now? And Shop Farragut was one of the things they were taking on. And this organization has evolved to, the Shop Farragut program is what they're known for. We know them as Farragut Business Alliance. Out in the with our residents, our citizens, we're known as Shop Farragut. And I will say Steve has been doing a bang-up job with this Shop Farragut program. He's brought in the Dog Days, the Red, White, and Blues Festival. We've moved that to West End. We have the monthly draw for the, what do we call that, the town sampler. He's going to be doing, he did last year, he did the scavenger hunt at the beginning of August, and it was right before school started, and the kids and moms, they just got engaged, and it was just a lot of energy behind it. It was a great little program that really kind of advertised our business on our Facebook page. He has been doing a great job with promoting Shop Farragut and just he keeps looking at opportunities where we can engage with our businesses. And I think it's we're starting to kind of hit that where we can use this as a selling point to new businesses that we're looking to recruit into the town to say, we've got this option for you that we're going to really try and promote your business through the Shop Farragut program. So I think it's running very nicely.
Steve, you want to come up and anything you want to add to that?
Steve Krimpaski, 10609 Chevy Drive, Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm having a ball, and it's really been a very wide scope, and a broad net that we're throwing out there to accomplish a lot of things. Getting a lot of businesses engaged. Some never knew that they could engage. And it's been a fun year, and I just see growth everywhere. And we're at a good point right now. Also, I want to point out that this level of funding has been the same for the last 3 years, and we're growing still. So thank you very much, and look forward to another good year. Come on out July 7th, please, everybody. It's free.
And I would, sorry, go ahead.
We got you up there. Would you just give a brief kind of what you're planning on doing at the EDAC meeting next month? We're going to try to bring somebody.
Well,
I know it's off the subject of this memorandum, but
part of this, our work project, scope of work is I sit with the EDAC committee and report on that, and also sit on a committee now with Pam Milliken and others, where we're going to try to talk directly with some of the business owners on their challenges and successes with doing business here in the town of Farragut, and try to do some overall survey of status quo with businesses and how they're feeling about things. Certainly, I have certain businesses that engage a lot with what we do, and others that, because of size of business or their ability to, get engaged, presents challenges from time to time. But we want to know why and how we can help. So we're constantly looking at ways to make things better and more fun and more rewarding.
appreciate that. Thank you.
I will add that they work hand in hand with our chamber as well. They have a great working relationship and very the programs are very supportive of each other. So it's really, they've integrated well and to support business in the town of Farragut. So I think we're at the beginning of a really good place to be.
It's the best ribbon cutting ceremonies anywhere.
Yes,
Believe
they do.
me.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree too.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments?
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
I have none.
None.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Last item, approval appointment to the Farragut Parks and Athletic Council.
Yes, sir. Valerie DeBow has turned in her application to serve on the Parks and Athletics Council. She is currently a member with her term expiring this month. So the motion is to approve Valerie DeBow to the Parks and Athletics Council for a 2-year term ending June of 2020.
Move to appoint Valerie DeBow to the Parks and Athletics Council for a 2-year term ending June 2020.
Second.
Any questions, comments?
None.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next is Town Administrator's Report.
Well, before Steve's and the FBA's big event next week, we have the biggest event in town, the July 4th Parade, and we're going to be excited to do that again this year. The parade starts, actually before the parade starts, a freedom run that Fleet Feet's putting on, starts at 9 o'clock, and then the parade will start shortly thereafter around 9:30. So we're looking forward to having a ton of folks out there, hopefully good weather, and see everyone out there. We've got a full house and then some for the parade. So Sue and her folks do a great job. All the town employees do a great job, and we really appreciate all the support we get from the community.
David, how many applicants did we end up with? How many participants do we have in the parade?
95 plus.
We filled all the available slots.
A long one.
Wow.
Forward to it. Is that all you have then, David?
Yes, sir. That's all I have.
Okay. Town's attorney?
No report.
No report. All right. In that case,